Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our first therapeutic meeting of Lighting the Shire Spiritist Group of 2021. We are very happy to be here once again, and we hope you had a great break. You enjoyed Christmas, New Year with your families, and you are feeling rejoiced with this New Year perspective ahead. We certainly are over here with a lot of new things and new plans. And this therapeutic talk will be the first one of this year, and we start with a great topic that we all always need to pay attention to. So we'll be talking about health and well-being from a Spiritist perspective, or with a Spiritist approach. So in tonight's therapeutic meeting, we will be discussing health and well-being from this Spiritist perspective, and also a little bit about the opposite of being healthy and being ill-free, or being well, being balanced, which is the lack of health, disease, and ill-being. To start off, we just wanted to clarify the difference in understanding of health from a general perspective and the actual Spiritist concept of it. So according to the World Health Organization, health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So this concept is already a positive one in a way, because it's considering all the aspects of our lives and our well-being overall. So it's saying if you're not sick, it doesn't mean that you're healthy. So it has to be a complete physical, mental, and social well-being. But as we Spiritists and spiritualists know, the physical body, the material body, is not the only part of us. We are actual spiritual beings transitioning through the matter, transitioning through these material bodies that we know. So we understand health, and I'm getting this concept actually from Emmanuel, our dear friend that's always helping us with his wisdom. So health, according to Spiritism, is the perfect harmony of the spirit. So how are these concepts different? So when we talk about balance and inner harmony, spiritually speaking, we're talking about our virtues being developed, our mental state being attuned with the divine. We have clarity of who we are, what our purpose is, and we are actually putting all our qualities into practice, and being emotionally and spiritually available for all this, to being part of the whole. This concept is very different from just looking at a physical, mental, and social well-being in one lifetime. And basically, the essence of Spiritism, one of the fundamentals, is our life after life, right? The continuation of life beyond matter, our opportunities to reincarnate and further develop ourselves in each life. So we believe that our physical bodies are reflecting a temporary state of our spirit. Nothing is permanent in this life. We are always evolving, always learning, always changing. So these temporary material bodies are only what we have at the moment. It doesn't mean that we are like that forever. We're not eternally like that. And our perispirit, so for those who are not familiar with this concept, our fluidic body, or our energetic body, the one that stays with us after we finish the life in this material body, is the source of everything that we created for our physical body. So we call the perispirit the regenerator model. So based on the perispirit that we have planned to have in this lifetime, our bodies were then created with the power of our minds and with the assistance of the constructing spirits. So the spirit is the bearer of health or the lack of it, balance and harmony or the lack of it. And that is translated then into our fluidic bodies, our energy bodies, and our material bodies that we're using temporarily as a vessel. So everything that's related to us, we have seen here before in previous talks, everything that's related to us, including our bodies, is first created in our minds. Our minds are the dynamo of energies that are creating our realities and everything that we go through in life. So we like Emmanuel quite a lot. We've studied his book, Thought and Life. We have a lot of the lessons that we have learned available, and that book is really good. We always recommend it here. And Emmanuel, in that book, he discusses how our minds are the mirror of life. So the mind is the mirror of life. And the results of who we are today is based on the mental reflexes that we have today and the past ones. So like a sower that's putting seeds on the land, everything that we have sowed today, we are going to bear the fruits tomorrow. And the results of what we have done in the past is what we are today. So we can then understand that according to our moral choices, our emotional conduct, everything that we have experienced and everything that we have developed in terms of virtues, in terms of knowledge, and what we have actually acted on is basically reflecting on our health in this lifetime, for those who are incarnate, of course. And if we are in the spiritual realm, the same thing. We're going to be reflecting in our perispirits, our energy bodies, our fluidic bodies, what we have lived like. We're going to be exactly the same without the body, but the same kind of thoughts, the same emotions, and sometimes we actually discarnate with the same sensations we had in the body, because the perispirit, the fluidic body, is the connection for the sensations of the body. So we always have the reflections of our mental, emotional states in the spirit. And when we're looking at health, if we're looking at health from a perspective of looking at our bodies, Emmanuel clarifies as well that our spirit is continually imprinting our current mental reflexes on this instrument that we have to manifest in this world. There are some beyond the grave that are very unbalanced because of problems caused by suicide or murder, crime, and other vices. At their rebirth, they immediately display painful disarrangements caused by the vibratory malfunction of cellular pathology. So everything that's happening to us, even on a cellular level, is producing an equal vibration in our spiritual bodies, and we are showing that when we go back to the spiritual world. And the choices that we make, the attitudes that we have, the moral code which we will live by, is what's going to determine our well-being in the spiritual realm as well as we depart. And that also justifies why sometimes we might reincarnate with a condition that we can't justify. Sometimes some people that are really nice, really good people, they suffer from these different diseases or different conditions that cause a kind of an impairment to their lives. So that could be a consequence to a previous life of mistakes, like he's saying here, crimes against the divine law, against the natural law, like vices or crimes. And he explains how this process happens, right? So we may have mutilations and diseases deeply stored in our spiritual fields as seeds of sharp thorns. We are then harvesting what we have unfortunately sowed, planted in the previous lives. But our Creator is ever so merciful. And when we regret the actions that we had in the past, we might ask for an opportunity to repent and create balance where imbalances were created. And we are giving a chance to transform our trials into learning and balance. So our body, as the saying says, is the temple of the Spirit. But our spirit is the eternal being, the one that survives after this material existence, and the one that should be the focus to our provision of balance in this existence. So any damage we might do to our bodies will also leave marks in these fluidic bodies that we will take with us, that are with us, and will take with us from here to the spiritual realm, and vice versa. So we are living in this continuous cycle of making choices, attuning to a particular moral conduct, and having attitudes in a certain way. And we leave the consequences, sometimes straight away, sometimes in a different life. But it's all always materializing itself in our bodies, the new physical body that we have, the fluidic body, if we are in the spiritual realm. So, summarizing all of this, we need to look after our physical health and well-being by developing, of course, a number of healthy habits, such as having good nutrition, exercise, sleep, when our bodies are asking for it. We should try to listen to what our bodies are telling us. But if we look at causal perspective, the cause and reaction of life in the circle of life that we have just discussed, the most important care we should have is toward our spirit, who we are as eternal beings, our spiritual nature. So if we're looking for a diet to implement in our lives, or a regimen of exercise, great. We should always be spending the same amount of time, if not more, to have a spiritual diet programmed, spiritual habits developed, because the nutrition of life is the nutrition of the soul. The healthy habits that we create mentally, emotionally, are going to have a direct impact in our physical bodies. So if we're going the other way around, just working on the physical, we're not developing the skills, the virtues that we're going to take with us, because we're only focused on the temporary, right? So here are a few questions for us. Let's take a moment to reflect together. What are we ingesting mentally? What's the current nutrition that we are giving our spirits? It could be through media, through conversations. What kind of thought patterns we have? Are we attuning to the divine? Are we attuning with good, with love, with higher spirits? Are we aiming to connect with life, with nature? Or are we connecting with the temporary things? Are we focused on the materialistic things? Are we giving in to our more primitive instincts and nature? Are we constantly living in this mindset of judgment, criticism to society, to people? Or are we adding the positive things that we can offer to ourselves, to people around us, to people that we don't know, to the community around us, to the world? So a lot of mindfulness being put into our emotions, our thoughts, and our actions are the positive, the healthy habits that we're going to create for the spirits, the ones that will be taken with us from here onto the spiritual life. So if we're living a behavior of indignation, criticism, judgment of our brothers and sisters, as an example, we're only creating negative impacts on ourselves. If we expect the divine law, the world around us to be merciful with us, to be patient with us and our failures, why are we sometimes not patient with other people's failures? Those habits are the ones that might be creating imbalances that we feel directly in our bodies. So, if we're thinking of putting a detox plan for this year in our spiritual progress, why not think of a spiritual detox from time to time? How to rid our minds of the habits that are causing us issues. So we should observe what behaviors we have that create negative emotions on ourselves. This should be really done on a daily basis, but sometimes we leave our lives more focused on different material things and we're not really reflecting on how we were living that particular day, that particular month. Just as an example, it's already February. Can you believe? What happened to January? Time goes super fast when we're living in this world of information, bombarding, and everything is very fast paced. We should take some time to reflect, if not every day because things are busy, once a week, once a month, to make like comparison checklist. What are the things that I'm really trying to focus on for myself, and how was I this month? Those New Year's resolutions that we sometimes just read on the first few days of the new year and then we forget about them, we should be having a monthly check on them. The same way that we have a medical check, we go through like an exam sometimes and we look, okay, what is our blood telling us there? Okay, our levels of this and this need to be adjusted. We should be doing that assessment, spiritually speaking. And no one else can do that for us because we are the ones who know ourselves, our deepest feelings, our deepest emotions, our thoughts. So, André Luiz also has a lot of books that explain some of the processes. I'm going to talk a little bit about one of his concepts for disease and Emmanuel's concepts of how the pathological processes that originate diseases form. So, also from the book Thought and Life, he says, when we commit an injustice, our mind enters into a state of conflict. We endure not only the censure of repentance, but also the vibrations of sorrow and accusation from both our victim and those who sympathize with him. This initiates an intense disruption within the soul, which in turn is reflected upon the physical body. So like we were saying, everything starts with our minds, our actions, our emotions. He mentions here that these disruptions, along with feelings of anger, despair, cruelty, and intemperance, create morbid zones in one's organic structure. The state of dissonance in the cells neutralizes nearly all defense mechanisms and renders the weaker organs to a fertile ground for pathological germs. So whenever we get sick, when we say my immunity is low, it starts in the mind. We need to be at a lower vibratory level to then be in contact with those pathological germs and get sick. When we are well, when we are healthy, spiritually, mentally, emotionally speaking, we don't get sick. If you want to know an example, Divaldo Pereira Franco, one of the most famous mediums that are alive, representatives of Spiritism ambassador. He's on his 90 plus years of age, and he's healthy, and he's out and about working, helping others. So he was once asked, what does he do to preserve his physical being, because he never looked his age. And it's the mind, the choices that he's making, his mind, his mindset, his behavior, his emotions. He's always looking for good. You won't see him talking evil things about anyone. Even during this pandemic, you never saw him despair or make impressions of fear, of loss of hope. He was always putting out messages of hope, of faith, of peace. That should be our attitudes towards the crises that we live. Despair, anger, like Emmanuel mentions here, cruelty or intemperance, ignorance, not accepting others for what they are, what they're doing. When we are seeing, governors, our material governors, politics, choose one thing over another, or in brackets, society. And we're always judging, we're always making negative remarks, we're always being putting on negative criticism. We are adding fire to a fire that already exists. Our planet doesn't need more people attuning with those feelings to make those situations worse. The planet that we live in at the moment is going through this phase of transformation, and it needs us to send light, to send love, to send understanding, tolerance. The higher spirits, they never judge anyone. They never make negative comments towards someone. They always understand that they are currently at that state. Even the most ignorant spirits, they understand it's just going through a phase of ignorance, but they try to help it. And we have to really have that mindset of how can we minimize the dissonance in ourselves and in the world by sending people understanding, peace, love. So Emmanuel continues here to explain that our pathological processes can originate from visible causes. Sure, we might have, like we mentioned before, vices, addictions that are damaging our physical bodies, and it's obvious it's because of those particular actions, but not always. The pathologies that we live are linked to visible causes. Unhealthy emotions, when deeply seated, can create disease. So again, we need to look into what emotions are we having, what kind of thoughts, patterns we have every day, what kind of vibration we send out. Because we might be doing a number of things externally. I can do a positive action, a positive deed here and there, but what I'm actually feeling, what I'm thinking, when I put my energy into actions every day, it's what really counts. And it's what really is going to tune to health and well-being or disease and ill-being. So now André Luiz from the book Study and Live explains a little bit about disease, right? Disease are problems that we carry with us, created by addictions of other times or acquired now, which the natural law imposes in favor of our own rebalance. So even when we're looking at a physical disease, it might be our spirit transitioning through this process of letting go of disturbances that we have created in the past. So the current state of physical lack of health might be a process of regeneration for the spirit. And in the spiritual realm, in many books, I have seen in some books from André Luiz, he mentions that there are some spirits that are so resignated in their suffering, and they might choose to have a particular life that's very hard, that they have limitations on the physical body, but their spirits are happy, are free, because they are dealing with it in a positive way. They are tuning with this energy of love and balance. So that's more important than having an appearance of physical health, trying to control our physical health at all costs, but not having our mindsets, our hearts attuned to a healthy state spiritually. Okay, so we have the biggest advice that was given to us from the book Harvest of Light. It's not yet available in English, but in Portuguese, Ceifas de Luz. It mentions that when Jesus has recommended us to live loving our enemies, he wasn't trying to induce us to be connivent with evil, to be complacent, but he was giving us the formula for ideal balance with peace and spiritual immunization. So this message is called spiritual immunization, and it comes in a very interesting time to be read, right? Because we have already discussed it here, with this current pandemic. If you are in peace because you're doing your best and you're loving everyone around you, you might not get COVID. It doesn't matter if you're wearing a mask, you're not wearing a mask, you're in somewhere where the virus might be present, you won't get it. So many health workers are working to help others at the moment in the front line, and they are not getting sick. They might be attuned with love. They're trying to fulfill their mission, hence why they are immune in a way. So we need to study a lot more to understand how immunity and health works. That's for sure. And just to wrap up, I want to wrap up with a nice message from Joanna De Angelis from the book Happy Life, and then we can move on to our discussion of the topic. So she mentions here, take a good look at how much time you dedicate to your spiritual life every day. You go to work, get dressed, entertain yourself, eat, sleep, and devote a few minutes to your incarnate spirit by way of a short prayer or a brief reading, or you listen to a lecture. But maybe sometimes you do none of these. Humans are not just mind and body. Above and foremost, they are spirits that command the mind-body components. As such, they require spiritual sustenance to properly perform their tasks. The body needs upkeep to live, but so does the soul. As always, Joanna De Angelis is straight to the point. So, dedicating ourselves to our spiritual life is to every day remember that we are eternal beings. We're not just a body sleeping and going through our basic needs here. They are important whilst we're living in the matter, but it is more important to focus on our spiritual well-being, our spiritual health. If we're not feeling well, we can pray, but we can pray. We can be in a meditative state the whole day if we want. All it takes is discipline. And when we are vigilant, we are connecting with the good spirits, our protectors, the spirits that are here to help us put our good energies, our good vibrations, our good qualities, virtues into practice, because the world really needs people dedicated to this kind of services. They will help us. And we can feel directly from the source the energy blessing us and helping us feel stronger, feel better. So we can do a lot of things to enrich our spirits, and we should be practicing that more than anything in our lives. So that's our reminder. So a few reminders that we had as well here that we're going to wrap up with. How to construct a strong spiritual immunologic system. Spiritual immunity. Discipline. So, like we were saying, vigilance of the mind, of our emotions, the habits that we are developing spiritually every day. Decision. Having our will put into work. Really wanting what we say we want, because we might be just saying it, but we don't mean it. So we have to really mean it and choose it every day. So choosing these new paths to follow every day and persevering in them. When things are challenging, when things are getting hard, persevere, never give up, always have hope, because we're always going to have support, spiritual support, to go through the tasks that we need to go through. So that's what we had for tonight. I want to thank you, everyone that has been here listening in. Always good to be here with you. May a lot of peace be with you all, be with us. And now we're going to move on to our live feed so we can have a discussion on the topic and a meditation to wrap up, so we can focus again on our spiritual well-being and hopefully have our physical health and well-being improved by this as well. That was all for tonight. Thank you so much, and I will see you online in a minute. The link with the details was here on this post as well. So we're going to be online in Zoom now. Thank you so much.